Coming to you from Dynatrace Perform in Las Vegas, it's Pure Performance.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pure Performance and Perf Bytes, coming to you from Dynatrace Perform 2019 in Las Vegas. I'm Brian Wilson, and my co-host is the one and only Mark Tomlinson from Perf Bytes. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hey, Brian. How are you?
Pretty exciting going on here, right?
It's nice. It is. It's nice here. We're enjoying our time. I like it.
Mark, we have a guest we want to bring on. I'll let him introduce himself more properly, but we have Jason Westerhouse. Jason, why don't you introduce yourself? You're from KeyBank. Introduce us. Tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, how are you guys doing? Great. I'm Jason Westerhouse. I'm from KeyBank. My title is Tech Lead of Monitoring or Application Performance Monitoring at Key. Typically, that entails kind of the Dynatrace suite as far as AppMon, DCRM, and now newly kind of this past year is Dynatrace. I've just been with KeyBank a little bit over a year now. I was brought in to kind of help out with the AppMon to Dynatrace transition. So all last year was kind of kicking it up, Dynatrace, getting some test apps in there and kind of our main applications inside of Dynatrace. And this next year, in kind of what I've talked about, is transitioning Dynatrace into more of less of a monitoring after the fact of in production monitoring, where of course that's really good, but now we want to bring it into that DevOps space and eventually into NoOps if we can. So getting the developers involved and getting that process figured out to where Dynatrace can really help out the application teams.
You know, I wish I knew that you did the AppMon to Dynatrace conversion, because just on Monday I taught the class Dynatrace for AppMon users.
Yeah,
Could have had you come in, or could have talked to you about what we should include in that class. It's a new one.
definitely.
So you just did the presentation with the rest of your team. Was that Guy and Mick, right, from KeyBank?
Yeah. So we actually had two separate speaking points here. The first one was Mick kind of giving an overview of what the strategy of KeyBank is and was, and then myself and Guy kind of walked through how we actually did that.
And this was the DevOps to NoOps at KeyBank talk, just for in case anyone was at it or was looking at it on the schedule and wishing they could be there. I was looking through some your presentation, and obviously it's kind of outlining how you did that. But I want to start by asking you, there's one slide in there in particular that really got me scratching my head. Is like, how do you go about doing this? I think probably a lot of people who are thinking about this have the same thought. You have the don't boil the ocean slide. And how does one go from DevOps to NoOps without boiling the ocean? Because it sounds like you've done it, or you're in process of doing it, but it seems like the only way to do it, sort of. But tell us what your approach was on that.
Yeah, so I think the main concept of that was try to get try to get to that NoOps or DevOps space where we're trying to utilize as much as we can with Dynatrace and without disrupting what's going on currently, right? We don't want to have the developers or the application team absolutely change their process where we might add days or weeks or even typically hours onto their process just to add more monitoring and more space around what we can do with to help them out. So I think that's kind of the main concept of it. We just don't want to interrupt the things that are going on and kind of add to it rather than kind of disrupt their processes.
So how do you? It almost sounds, and I might be again. I couldn't attend your presentation, so I'm just kind of going from the deck here. But it almost sounds like you went from AppMon to Dynatrace, and with Dynatrace going to NoOps. This to me almost sounds like a cloud migration, where you're going from maybe monolithic, self-hosted applications to some sort of microservice-y, containery kind of thing in the cloud, where going all at once is difficult. Would you say this is a similar approach to changing your monitoring from something like AppMon to Dynatrace to NoOps, where you're taking that sort of piece by piece approach where you say, we'll take a small piece of this and start moving it over what, or was it larger? Because as you just said, you don't want to interrupt the normal flow of things, or you want to have the least amount of impact.
Yep.
Especially, I can imagine most people would say we don't want monitoring to have an impact on our schedule. So
Yeah.
was it an approach like that, or how would you describe that?
Yeah. So that's typically so when I started, it was Dynatrace is just coming in the door, just walking in the door, right? Everybody was on Atmon, and typically, the WAS space and kind of the WebLogic stuff like that. And so the move was our three main applications at Key were moving over to OpenShift. So
Okay.
kind of the microservice type area there. So we do have them kind of hosted in house. But they are talking about moving to the cloud. So that's also where this comes into where we really need to get these our strategies and our processes figured out with monitoring before we move to there. Again, it's that little three applications. I say little, but it's our biggest applications. This next year, we're actually going to be working on moving all of the rest from Atmon. And those still are on WAS. Some of those are going to be moving over to OpenShift as well. But it's like you said, it's kind of doing the most monitoring that we can and the most help that we can do with this development in DevOps or NoOps space. But it is kind of going to be a slow process where we actually get our main OpenShift applications over, which we've done that, kind of proved out Dynatrace and what we can do with that. And then it's kind of layering that with this DevOps, NoOps space, and then adding on the other applications that kind of help out with, those applications that we already have over there in OpenShift. So.
Also, it looks like I'm looking at one of the other slides, and you have your pipeline, right? You're using combination of very common pipeline tools. And it seems some of the blueprinting or some of the stuff you all figured out was where to fit in Dynatrace into this pipeline. I see one of the observations from the blueprinting was the two. I have Mark and I both have a extensive test and background in load testing.
Mm-hmm.
So too late testing, 8 a.m. calls to discover, discuss the problems that were done. How when you walked into this, you said about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was a lot of the monitoring baked into the pipeline, or was that something you figured out recently as part of this blueprinting session? And what was if there have been improvements in that, what have you seen in that?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. When I first started, we like I said, we had Atmon and DC Rum, so monitoring was there, and it had been there for a number of years. So there was a good kind of concept of at the 8 a.m. calls that you mentioned. Hey, what did Dynatrace see? And Dynatrace was kind of that blanket term, right? And we do have a monitoring team, and before I started, it was run by great individuals that were able to assist with that, right? So it wasn't 8 a.m. scramble, try to figure out what monitoring was showing. Typically, the monitoring team kind of already had an idea what was going on, and it was more of just a recap. Hey, something went down at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. yet last night. This is what monitoring saw, whatever, right? That greatly improved with Dynatrace in the actual Dynatrace product now. Now we have more application teams and application performance people looking at Dynatrace when the issue comes up or before the issue comes up. There's a number of times where we have just kind of a little jabber chat going where someone posts a screenshot of Dynatrace. And that really helps. And especially when we start doing it in the performance space where we're doing the testing, right? They have a Dynatrace dashboard up where, before they were trying to look at Atmon, which was really helpful, but Dynatrace really bubbles those problems up and really helps out. And it's what we've been seeing as we're kind of going through this process. And we're just at the beginning too. So this is only going to get better for us in the DevOps space.
Jason, one of the other things you mentioned on the observations from the blueprinting, it sounds like a step back from sort of continuous deployment back to waterfall in dev or in engineering. How did that work out? And was that expected?
Yeah, I think it was kind of expected. I say that kind of loosely, but it's one of those step back and relook at it kind of things, and not like we're not forcing ourselves to go back, but it's kind of that where we need to kind of look and rethink at how we're actually doing this, and then approach it differently. So it's not. I mentioned earlier that we don't want to disrupt things, but we just want to make them better, right? And sometimes that is taking a step back and rethinking how we're actually going to do this.
Did it open your eyes to kind of the maturity of the engineering skill? Like they start getting more feedback and more truth, I guess, learning more truth about the real impacts of their code, of their decisions. And did that sort of kind of take them back a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was always, and that's why we have, those performance testing teams. So we're able to see those. And like I said, with Atmon or Dynatrace before we even started this DevOps stuff. But it does help, right? It kind of, it's that real quick feedback that we weren't missing, but it just kind of, like I said before, bubbles up to the top where you're actually able to see that. And you get those, I just did a deployment, this was the direct impact to the application, and they know exactly what was going on. Might have to do some kind of investigations, but kind of my direct impact on the application. So it's definitely helpful.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think, Brian, the to the boil the ocean comment, we see that as well with some of the really early implementations of Atmon. The first times people would actually see the interconnections across a system, you get overwhelmed because you make one change in one piece of the code, and even in more simplistic systems, you'd see all the dependencies that come out of that. So I do like Jason's idea of the island of sanity. It's kind of a peaceful term, the island of sanity.
I'll have to bring my I'll have to have my ukulele playing at that.
That would be good. That would be good. And then Chris Pine washes up on the shore, and then Wonder Woman, then there's a battle scene that was pretty good. All right, making a Wonder Woman reference. Why not?
That's fine. Why not? Why not? Jason, you were talking about right. There's the integrations and the tool testing and all, and you said you're starting to take steps towards NoOps. And if I recall correctly, you said you're not 100% there at NoOps yet, but it's the journey you're on now, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We want to focus on DevOps now, and NoOps is definitely that goal that we're striving towards. That will take a little bit of time because it's a process, and getting, we're still on kind of the monolithic, factor for most of our applications, but moving toward the DevOps with microservices, and we're hoping to get to NoOps. Yeah.
And I guess besides the platforms that you're using on your application side, right? Obviously, if you're monolithic, NoOps is a lot more difficult. So once you start transitioning to containers and serverless and all that kind of stuff, you can tackle that more. Yeah. I would assume a large part of that then has to do, and this is my shameless plug here, is a large part of it, especially on your side, has to do with the fact that you can grab all this data from the API to feed those NoOps scripts, right? To say, hey, here's what's running, here's what's happening. We've got all the data that we're monitoring, and from that we can take action. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but is that kind of the way you're seeing it, or what kind of gave you all the vision to say let's move to NoOps with this?
Yeah, I think that was actually the strategy behind that. We want to be able to have that quick feedback and be able to use those metrics that we're already getting. So the APIs allows us to do that, whether it's posting these deployment events to Dynatrace saying, hey, Dynatrace, we're actually doing a deployment right now. And then Dynatrace knows if something goes wrong, they're able to tie it to that deployment event. To, hey, we had a deployment yesterday. Let's pull it from the API into any tools, any monitoring tools that anybody else wants to look at or whatever. We were able to pull those metrics in, and like Jenkins, look directly in our build, right? Instead of going back and forth, right? They're able to pull these metrics right in. You can look into Jenkins and how those builds are doing. And that really helps. Just utilizing, like you said, the API that Dynatrace provides to either push or pull really helps out.
Mark, it's funny. It reminds me of going back several years. There's all this talk about APIs now, and they're nothing new. right? We go back to the old tools we used to use. They all said some APIs, and either no one really quite had the vision on how to use them well, or maybe they were clunky. I don't know what, but now it's like time for APIs to shine. And the thing that I like to point out to people is that what these really mean, what the APIs really mean, I'm not even just talking about ours, but this API integration of all these modern tools is you don't even necessarily really have to go into the tool anymore. If you think about this concept of NoOps, you don't have to now pull up Dynatrace and look at a dashboard and find some data. This is all just something being automated in the back end with the data that tools like Dynatrace or other ones collect and share, and they can interact with each other as if they were living, and fortunately they're not living yet.
Yeah.
But you're not opening, you're not interacting. It's pulling, you're becoming one more step removed from having to do that work, which is just really awesome.
I would go, I think things have changed though. To Jason's experience in particular, when you look at kind of the information you shared about GitOps, the way you looked at GitOps in your across the pipeline, Jason, APIs, technically, I think we figured them out a long time ago. People have been getting system A to talk to system B and trade data and do all sorts of stuff. I think when you look at the self-healing ideas that we're hearing about this week, that we've been hearing about from Dynatrace for a while now, and looking at the way that Jason's sort of bringing NoOps into that, it's applying those APIs for information across the process and automating the default decisions that one might make based on information taken from APIs and applied to APIs of the automated process itself. And I think that's the magic of putting these APIs across all the tooling versus, Brian, I think your point was, APIs in applications have been around a long time, right? EDI transactions even. But now we're actually automating sort of the decision-making process over time to achieve exactly what Jason's getting at here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of second that as well.
Cool. Jason, we have to ask you an obligatory question now. Two obligatory questions. Is number one, is this your first time in Vegas?
Nope. It's my second perform and my second time in Vegas. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Were you? I forget. Were you speaking last time, or were you just an attendee?
No, just an attendee. Yeah, it was kind of a.
All right. And last year, were you up or down when you left the town?
Up or down? Oh, yes.
Money wise,
I was very close to even, which is
that's good.
But I was down, but very close to even. Yeah. Very
close to even. That's that. Well, you might call that success.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah, because you didn't lose a lot.
Yes. Now the other question is, now that it's 2019, right, and we just had the new year, do you have any performance-related New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I mentioned it previously. We want to get off Atmon in fully on a Dynatrace.
Yay!
Nothing against Atmon. We really like Atmon, but Dynatrace is that next level, and we definitely want to get there. Yep, and we have a ton to do. So
I started using Atmon in, I think, 2009 or 10, and I think it's a wonderful tool. But yeah, it's time to move on. Anyway, I'm sure my seniors would love to hear that that's your goal, to get off Atmon. So congratulations. Hopefully we can help you do that. Thanks a lot for taking some time to speak with us. Are you sticking around after the conference to spend some time out here, or are you heading back home?
Yeah, not going home, but yeah, I'm taking off Thursday morning, so going off to Dallas to visit a friend and really enjoy some warmer weather because I'm from Michigan, not too warm out there right now.
All right. Well, enjoy. Thank you very much for being on with us. Cool. From Dynatrace Perform 2019 in Las Vegas. A big thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Jason.